4 witnesses testifying in pairs on Capitol Hill Tuesday. 3 of them were on the July call between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelenskyy and say their firsthand knowledge left them troubled and concerned.
Do you swear or affirm that the
Lieutenant
testimony
Colonel
you're about to
Alexander
give
Vindman leads European affairs at the National Security Council.
Frankly, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was probably an element of shock that maybe in certain regards my worst fear of how our Ukraine policy could play out was playing out, and how this was likely to have significant implications for U.S. national security.
Vindman says he immediately reported the call to the National Security Council's lawyer. And it wasn't the first time he raised those concerns to the NSC's counsel. He had done it one other time earlier in the year after a July 10th meeting where Vindman says EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland raised investigations with Ukrainians. Vindman pushed back on Republican attempts to paint him as a partisan.
Would you call yourself a never-Trumper?
Representative, I'd call myself never partisan.
Russia advisor Jennifer Williams testified she also found the call, in her words, unusual and political, and made clear she has no agenda against President Trump. She says she heard secondhand that President Trump had asked Pence not to attend the Ukrainian president's inauguration. That alleged order came in the midst of the White House's alleged pressure campaign on Ukraine. Still, she offered an explanation.
The vice president had only a narrow window of availability at the end of May, and the Ukrainian parliament would not meet to set a date for the inauguration until after May 14th.
Republicans, led by Congressman John Radcliffe, pointed out though both Vindman and Williams were on the call, their characterization of the president's conduct differed.
So, 2 different people, 2 impartial observers, one felt the need to report the call because there was a demand that was improper, and one that didn't report it to anyone. We have 2 independent folks, nonpartisans, and I'm not hearing a consensus between the 2 of you about what exactly you both heard on the call that you heard at the exact same time. And if you can't reach an agreement with regard to what happened on the call, how can any of us? An impeachment inquiry is supposed to be clear. It's supposed to be obvious.
Less than 2 hours later, 2 more officials were in the hot seat. Tim Morrison, the National Security Council's former official in charge of Russia and Europe policy, and former special envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, who was part of what Democrats called an unofficial or irregular channel to Ukraine. Volker denied he was operating off the radar, and he says discussion of why assistance aid to Ukraine was held up was never tied to a demand for investigations.
I did not know of any linkage between the hold on security assistance and Ukraine pursuing investigations. No one had ever said that to me, and I never conveyed such a linkage to the Ukrainians.
Volker's testimony was slightly different than in the past. He previously denied any discussions about investigations during a July 10th meeting. Tuesday afternoon, he altered that.
As I remember, the meeting was essentially over when Ambassador Sondland made a general comment about investigations. I think all of us thought it was inappropriate. The conversation did not continue, and the meeting concluded.
Wednesday is expected to be arguably the most crucial day yet for Democrats. EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland is set to testify in the morning, and Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Laura Cooper and Undersecretary David Hale will sit before the committee that afternoon.